Shalom, my friend. Let me share something with you that might explain why certain things in your life keep falling apart, no matter how hard you try. It's not always about faith. Sometimes things fail because heaven never authorized them in the first place. Right now, across the world, millions of people are grinding themselves into dust, desperately praying for breakthrough in ventures that were never meant to succeed. They call it spiritual warfare. They blame the enemy. They question their faith. But often, it's not warfare at all. It's misalignment. They're asking God to fund what He never assigned, to bless what He never commissioned, to prosper what exists completely outside His original blueprint for their lives. I'm Rabbi Shimon. For 2 decades, I've been translating ancient Torah wisdom into practical clarity for thinking people who refuse to accept religious platitudes as answers to real-world problems. Today, we're examining one of the most misunderstood principles in all of Scripture, a principle that will completely transform how you approach work, money, relationships, and every major decision in your life. Here's what most people get fundamentally wrong about divine provision. They believe God funds dreams. He doesn't. God funds assignments. There's a profound difference between the two, and grasping this difference will save you years of frustration, financial stress, and wondering why your sincere efforts keep hitting invisible walls. The Torah reveals a fundamental law governing how the universe operates. Once you understand this law, everything about money, success, and life purpose becomes crystal clear. This law explains why some people experience effortless provision while others struggle despite working twice as hard. It explains why certain businesses thrive while others with superior products fail. It explains why some ministries grow exponentially while others plateau, despite genuine hearts and pure intentions. The law is this: provision follows alignment, not desire. Let me say that again, because this challenges everything you've been taught about success and spirituality. Provision follows alignment, not desire. This means having a good heart, working diligently, and wanting something desperately does not guarantee divine backing. What guarantees divine backing is operating within your assigned sphere, fulfilling your designated function, and building what you were specifically commissioned to build. The Torah teaches us 3 sequential principles that most people completely reverse. First, assignment precedes provision. You must know what you're called to do before expecting the resources to do it. Second, authority precedes resources. You must have legitimate authority in a sphere before money flows sustainably in that sphere. Third, calling precedes capacity. Your capacity to handle something develops after you accept the calling, not before. Most people approach life backwards. They chase money first, hoping it will reveal their purpose. They seek capacity before accepting their calling. They want resources before establishing authority. This backwards approach creates what I call spiritual turbulence, where nothing flows smoothly despite tremendous effort. Let me show you how this plays out in real life. In careers, countless people are trapped in positions that drain their life force because they chased salary over assignment. They took jobs based on earning potential rather than what they were called to contribute. Now they're asking God to bless work that exhausts them, relationships that deplete them, and lifestyles that force them to violate their deepest values just to maintain appearances. They wonder why their prayers feel hollow and their progress feels forced. In business, entrepreneurs launch ventures based on market opportunities rather than personal calling. They see what's profitable and assume that means it's meant for them. They work 18-hour days building something that was never theirs to build, then wonder why customers don't connect, why partnerships feel strained, why money trickles in slowly, if at all. They're operating outside their zone of divine authority, asking heaven to fund what heaven never commissioned. In ministry, well-meaning people start churches, nonprofits, and spiritual ventures because they see a need, not because they received a commission. They confuse compassion with calling. They mistake burden for assignment. Now they're fundraising for visions that originated in their emotions rather than divine instruction. They burn out trying to sustain what was never meant to be sustained through their efforts alone. In relationships, people force connections with individuals who look perfect on paper but don't align with their actual assignment in life. They marry based on attraction or convenience rather than divine pairing. They build friendships that drain them out of obligation rather than inspiration. They wonder why their closest relationships require exhausting effort and produce minimal joy. Financially, people experience chronic stress not because they don't earn enough, but because they're trying to fund lifestyles and ventures that exist outside their zone of divine provision. They chase income to validate identity rather than letting identity determine income streams. They accumulate debt financing dreams that were never authorized from heaven's perspective. This backwards approach creates three devastating patterns. First, hard work without assignment drains you. When you're operating outside your calling, even small tasks feel overwhelming. Activities that should energize you leave you exhausted. You need excessive rest to recover from work that should be life-giving. Second, prayer without alignment frustrates you. When you're asking God to bless what He never commissioned, your prayers feel like shouting into the void. You wonder if God is hearing you, if He cares, if prayer even works. The frustration isn't because God isn't listening. It's because you're asking Him to support something that contradicts His design for your life. Third, hustle without calling burns you out. When you're grinding in the wrong sphere, more effort produces diminishing returns. You work twice as hard for half the results. You start believing lies about your capabilities, your worth, your potential. You think the problem is your work ethic, when the real problem is your work assignment. Now let me share the 3 alignment laws that govern how provision actually flows in the universe. Understanding these laws will revolutionize how you approach every area of life. The first law: assignment creates authority. You cannot govern what was not entrusted to you. This means you only have legitimate authority in spheres where you've been specifically commissioned. Trying to operate outside your assigned sphere creates resistance, friction, and eventual failure, regardless of your qualifications or intentions. Think about a talented musician who decides to become a surgeon without medical training or calling. Their musical gifts don't transfer into surgical authority. They lack legitimacy to operate in that sphere. Patients won't trust them. Hospitals won't hire them. Insurance won't cover them. Not because they lack talent, but because they lack assignment. The same principle applies everywhere. You might be brilliant at marketing, but lack authority to lead a church. You might be gifted at teaching, but lack authority to run a business. You might be wonderful at nurturing, but lack authority to counsel marriages. Authority comes from assignment, not ability alone. The second law: authority attracts provision. Money follows legitimacy, not need. This is why some people with modest abilities attract abundant resources while others with exceptional talents struggle financially. It's not about fairness or worthiness. It's about operating within your sphere of divine authority. When you function in your assigned sphere, resources flow toward you naturally. People want to invest in what you're building. Opportunities open without force. Money comes from unexpected sources. Doors that were closed suddenly swing open. This isn't luck or networking. This is what happens when you align with divine design. When you operate outside your assigned sphere, you constantly chase resources. You have to convince people to invest. You have to force opportunities. You have to manipulate circumstances to create income. Even when money comes, it doesn't stick. It flows through your hands faster than you can hold it. The third law, misalignment causes leakage. This explains why some people's income disappears even when it increases. They get raises, bonuses, windfalls, but unexpected expenses always arise to absorb the extra money. Their car breaks down, their roof needs repair, medical bills appear. They can never get ahead financially despite earning more. This isn't coincidence or bad luck. This is what happens when you use resources to fund ventures outside your divine assignment. The universe has built-in mechanisms to redirect resources toward their proper destinations. Money that flows into wrong channels doesn't stay there. Let me illustrate this with a Torah example. In Exodus, when the Israelites needed someone to construct the Tabernacle, God didn't choose the most talented artist or the most successful businessman. He chose Bezalel, a young man whose name literally means "in the shadow of God." God didn't just choose Bezalel randomly and hope for the best. He specifically called him for this assignment and then gave him supernatural ability to fulfill it. The Torah tells us God filled Bezalel with divine spirit, with wisdom, understanding, and knowledge in all kinds of crafts, to work with gold, silver, bronze, to cut and set stones, to work in wood, and to engage in all kinds of artistic craftsmanship. Notice the sequence carefully. Assignment first, then ability. Calling first, then capacity. Bezalel didn't volunteer for this project because he was passionate about construction. He didn't lobby for the position because it seemed prestigious or would look good on his resume. He was chosen, commissioned, and then equipped. Once he accepted his assignment, something remarkable happened. Resources flowed toward the project effortlessly. People donated materials so generously that Moses eventually had to tell them to stop giving. This illustrates perfect alignment, divine assignment followed by divine authority, followed by divine provision. Bezalel operated within his commissioned sphere, so everything he needed was provided. The project succeeded not primarily because of human effort, but because of divine backing behind the right person doing the right thing. Now, let's make this intensely practical for your life today. Here are 7 diagnostic questions you can use this week to check your alignment with divine assignment. First, what am I forcing? Look honestly at areas where you constantly struggle against resistance. Where do you feel like you're pushing a boulder uphill? Where does progress require excessive effort compared to minimal results? These might be clear indicators that you're operating outside your assigned sphere. Second, what am I pretending is from God because I desperately want it to be? Be brutally honest about ventures you've labeled as divine calling because you need them to be legitimate. Sometimes we spiritualize our desires to avoid admitting we chose based on fear, greed, ego, or pressure from others rather than genuine commission from heaven. Third, what drains me instead of energizing me? Work within your assignment should be challenging but not chronically draining. It should stretch you without exhausting you. If you're constantly depleted by your main activities, if you need excessive recovery time, if you feel empty rather than full after your work, you might be operating outside your designed function. Fourth, where am I asking provision to validate my identity? Are you pursuing certain income levels or lifestyle markers to prove your worth? Are you choosing ventures because they sound impressive to others rather than because they align with your actual calling? Money should flow from identity, not create it. Success should confirm who you are, not define who you are. Fifth, what relationships require me to violate my values to maintain them? Connections within your assigned sphere should enhance your character, not compromise it. If you constantly have to pretend to be someone you're not to keep certain relationships, if you have to suppress your convictions to maintain certain partnerships, they might exist outside divine design for your life. Sixth, what successes feel hollow despite achieving my goals? Sometimes we succeed brilliantly at things we were never meant to succeed at. External achievement without internal alignment creates emptiness rather than fulfillment. This hollowness might indicate you're building impressive things in the wrong sphere. Seventh, where do I have natural authority that I'm not fully utilizing? Pay close attention to areas where people naturally seek your guidance, where your influence feels effortless, where you can create meaningful change without manipulation or force. These often indicate spheres of divine assignment you haven't fully embraced or taken seriously. Now, let me address some common objections to this teaching, because I know this challenges conventional wisdom about work and money. But Rabbi, I need the money. I can't afford to turn down opportunities. I understand financial pressure is crushingly real, but desperation doesn't create legitimate authority. Taking work outside your assignment might provide temporary relief, but it creates long-term misalignment that ultimately costs far more than it pays. Better to trust divine design and find creative ways to generate income within your actual sphere of calling. What if I already chose wrong and I'm heavily invested? Divine assignments don't usually change dramatically overnight. If you've built something outside your calling, look for ways to transition gradually rather than destructively. Sometimes God actually uses our mistakes as bridges to our actual assignment. Don't assume you have to burn everything down, but do start making deliberate choices that align with your true calling. Isn't all honest work blessed by God? Honest work is absolutely honorable, but not all honest work is assignment. You can have a job that provides for your family while building your true calling on the side. The key is not to mistake temporary provision for permanent assignment. Use honest work to support yourself while you discover and develop your actual sphere of authority. The goal here isn't to quit everything immediately and sit around waiting for dramatic divine revelation. The goal is to gradually and deliberately align your choices with your actual design. Start by identifying one area where you're clearly operating outside your assignment and take one concrete step toward realignment this week. Here's your specific challenge. Stop funding what God never assigned, even if it looks impressive to others. Look carefully at your current investments of time, money, and energy. Which ones consistently drain you rather than energize you? Which ones require you to be someone you're fundamentally not? Which ones produce results only through force and manipulation rather than natural flow? Choose one misaligned investment and begin withdrawing your resources from it. This might mean declining a lucrative opportunity that doesn't match your calling. It might mean ending a relationship that requires you to constantly compromise your core values. It might mean leaving a position that pays well, but systematically depletes your soul. This isn't about being irresponsible or impractical. This is about trusting that divine design is actually more practical than human strategy in the long run. When you operate within your assigned sphere, provision flows naturally. When you operate outside it, you have to force absolutely everything. Remember this fundamental truth: God doesn't fund dreams, He funds assignments. Your job is not to create opportunities through sheer force of will, but to recognize the ones already designed specifically for you. Your job is not to make things happen through manipulation, but to align yourself with what's already happening in the divine realm concerning your life. Some of you are exhausting yourselves building impressive ventures that were never meant to exist. Others are ignoring simple assignments because they don't seem significant or prestigious enough. Both patterns create misalignment and systematically block the flow of divine provision. True prosperity isn't about accumulating resources or impressing people. It's about faithfully stewarding the specific portion of creation entrusted to your care. When you focus on your assignment rather than your ambition, resources align with your purpose rather than competing with it. The Torah teaches us that every soul has a unique function in the cosmic design. When you operate within your function, you contribute to universal harmony. When you operate outside it, you create discord that affects not just your own life, but the lives of everyone connected to you. Your assignment might be smaller than your ego wants, but far larger than your fear believes. It might be simpler than your education suggests, but infinitely deeper than your experience indicates. It might look completely ordinary to others, but feel profoundly extraordinary to you when you're walking in genuine alignment. The sign that you're operating within divine assignment isn't the absence of challenges or the ease of the journey. It's the presence of supernatural grace to handle whatever comes. It's not that everything comes easily, but that you mysteriously have strength for what you're truly called to build. Stop asking God to bless your plans. Start asking Him to reveal His plans for you. Stop trying desperately to make your dreams succeed. Start discovering the dreams He planted in your design before you were even born. Your soul is the blueprint. Your life is the construction site. Shalom, my friend. Now let's build the life God actually designed for you.